What is up, guys? JT Tapias with the Empty Your Bucket Nutrition Plan. And today I want to speak with you about a subject that I'm incredibly passionate about. And I am passionate about the subject because I myself am a parent, a dad to two beautiful little girls. And my wife and I have a job. And that job is to provide the best education possible, not just in school, but inside of our household, from the time they're born to the time they decide to leave. Call that 19, 21, whenever it is that they decide to go off to college. It is our job inside of our household to provide the absolute best education and tools so that they can thrive as adults. It is said that from the time kids are born to the time they leave, parents pass on to their kids 70,000 hours worth of conditioning. That is right, 70,000 hours of hygiene habits, nutrition habits, manners, language, belief systems, fears, limitations, work ethic, lack of work ethic, finances, etc. All of these principles are passed on by the parents. Huge responsibility. I don't know if, as I'm mentioning this, you feel that weight that I personally feel on my shoulders to try to provide the best and most proactive education so that my kids don't struggle. We all know that to an extent, they're going to struggle in some areas of life. But what we don't want, and what I personally don't want, is for them to look back and say, wow, my dad, my mom didn't teach me X, Y, Z, and now I'm struggling, right? And so parents need to be hyper focused and proactive in looking at those different areas. I think that for the most part, as parents, we focus on those intrinsic sort of values, right? And so morals, principles, manners, we want them to be productive citizens. We want them to be respectful. We want to pass on all these things that make them sort of fit into society and not stand out in any way, especially in any vulgar or bad way, or to be confrontational or get into any of those things that are basically going to ostracize them and make them that person that you're going to point at in the airplane or in the bus and go, oh my God, that person's so rude, and oh my God, that person is this or that, right? We want to make sure that our kids are productive, that they're the best people they can be. And so I truly believe that most parents put their best foot forth to do that. But oftentimes I believe that parents forget some principles that are so important. And I can tell you that 9 out of 10 times these principles are missed. Number one, time management. I know this personally because I have always struggled with time management. This is an area where I've been stretched, where I've needed to grow. And looking back, without blaming anyone, I come from a culture, Spanish culture, where generally being late is sort of seen as something, you're gonna laugh, as something polite. Hear me out. Maybe even Spanish people that haven't realized this, right? But I had to go back and dig and figure out, why are most Spanish people 5, 10, or 15 minutes late? Why is it that they're always running behind? And when you look at things from a cultural perspective, in Latin American countries, people take their time. They live life. They sit down. They have a coffee with their neighbor. They're not rushed like we are here in America or maybe even in Europe. And so that makes people super late. People are very much interested in community and connecting and talking and gossiping and all of those things. And then there's another side of that, and that I've experienced in Latin America, and it's when you show up to a place early, people are sort of bothered by that. They're like, this person is so intense. They didn't even give me an extra 5 minutes. It's a weird thing. And so I grew up in America, but I grew up with a lot of those cultural principles that came from my parents who were raised in Colombia. And so for a long time, I struggled with time management. That got me in a lot of trouble. And so being in time, being responsible, making sure that I'm looking at my timelines, right? If I'm committing to a specific thing in a specific time, I should make those things happen when I say I'm going to make those things happen, right? And so a lot of these things are missed, right? Meeting deadlines. Oh my God, I had the hardest time meeting deadlines. I would say, I'll finish it on Wednesday, and I'd call on Friday and be like, I just got done. And it would always get me in so much trouble. And it all stemmed back from the way I grew up and the things that my parents unintentionally passed on to me. Work ethic. We want to pass on a strong work ethic to our kids so that they work hard in their careers and with their own children, right? And so work ethic, teaching them those principles, teaching them how to work for their money, right? And not just give them everything, because obviously then we have spoiled kids. Not giving up, reliability, consistency, all of these things that oftentimes are just unstated and unsaid, but that are so, so important. And of course, last but not least, of course, I'm going to talk about this because I also grew up in a Spanish environment where most of the food that we ate had rice and beans and steak, and we really rarely ever ate vegetables or nutritionally dense foods. And so, of course, I went into my adolescence doing a lot of the same thing. Some of you guys know I played competitive soccer, and so that affected me tremendously because I wasn't eating all the nutrients. I didn't have the right nutrition to back up the kind of activity I had. And I always think of this and I say, man, had I had proper nutrition when I was playing competitive soccer, who knows what I could have done, right? And so once again, unintentionally passed on by my parents because that's all they knew. They weren't physically active. They weren't paying attention to their nutrition. And of course, they passed those things on to me. Proper nutrition is one of those things that oftentimes when I speak to families, they say, I'm going to get on this diet, but I don't know that my kids are going to want to do this, or my husband is going to want to do this. And I oftentimes tell parents that this is a major, major responsibility, and that instead of preaching to them, what they should actually do is do it themselves and be an example, right? Actually, instead of telling them you should do X, Y, Z, you should actually live by it. And from that, you want to motivate them. And I can tell you that 10 out of 10 times when I see one person in the family up their standards, the rest of the family sort of follows suit. And it's a beautiful thing to see, right? And so I know that these principles can be passed on regardless of how old your kids are. I would say that when you up your standards, and we're talking about nutrition here, but when you up your standards in any area, it is part of the human spirit to see those things, for another person to see that and want to raise their standards, right? And so there's kind of a lid on standards, and when someone raises those standards, generally those other people follow through. And so it's beautiful to see one person come and adopt proper nutrition, and then all of a sudden see all the family members follow suit, and then that entire family get healthy, and it's just an impact from generation to generation. It's a beautiful thing to see. And so teaching our kids everything from proper nutrition to fasting, that is right. Fasting should be a principle that we pass on to our kids. Maybe not early on when they're in 5, 6, 7, but when they get to 12 and 15, teaching them to tame their hunger actually teaches them self-control. It teaches them discipline. It teaches them to hurt a little bit and to be okay with not having food. Not having food has a very, very valuable lesson to it, right? I don't know if you've ever fasted, but you know what I mean. When you go a period of time without eating, and all of a sudden you get through the hunger pangs, you have this laser beam sort of focus. You start thinking about more intrinsic things. You become very introspective. It allows you to truly, truly focus and think of things that are important, and you have time to plan, and you see kind of a vision for yourself, and you have the ability to actually proactively think when you're constantly eating and your digestive system is breaking down a bunch of nutrients. It's very, very hard for the mind to slow down. And so when we stop eating, the mind slows down. It gives us the ability to be introspective. And I truly believe that with reflection comes growth, and with growth, obviously, we can grow incredibly in all areas of life. Being able to teach our kids to meal prep, be proactive about food, the importance of food, exercise, movement is so important. Now, I believe that for the most part, schools and universities take care of that because there's sports and all these things, but intentionally going out with your family for a walk and making them part of your physical activity is super, super important, because guess what? That's what they're going to do with their family, right? So all these things are super important. And of course, always creating an attention and a really just a pointed fact that you want to make sure that they are focusing on nutrition, that they're actually doing the things that they need to do, that they're buying good groceries, that they know exactly what their macro breakdown is, that they understand the difference between a carbohydrate, a protein, and a fat. All these things should be part of our kids' education. And so I know this is a lot. You're probably overwhelmed. If you watch this entire video, you're probably thinking, wow, I already have all these other things on my plate. Now I have to think about this. But my friend, I can tell you right now that some of those forgotten principles that I spoke about, like winning belief systems, time management, work ethic, health principles, these things are the unspoken principles that will make a massive difference in your kids' lives. And they're going to go on and teach that to their kids. And so what a beautiful thing it is to be able to motivate them to eat well, to do all these things, and to think differently, because at the end of the day, they're going to thrive as adults, and they're going to look back and say, thank you, Mom and Dad. I appreciate you guys thinking and proactively planning my education, not just thinking in terms of my academic education, but actually the education that I received at home. And I truly believe, guys, that this is part of our responsibility. I hope you got something out of this. Today, we spoke about the importance of healthy family habits, how to instill good habits so that our kids can, go on to be productive adults, and not only that, but that they can pass those principles on to their kids. And if that happens, you did an amazing job. And so let's get proactive. Let's move forward. I know it's a big undertaking, but I also know that if you proactively do it, that if you are interested and motivated to see your kids thrive, you're going to do a tremendous job, and your kids are going to thank you for it. My name is JT Tapias, professional fitness life coach with the Empty Your Bucket Nutrition Plan. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd love for you to join our tribe. Hit the subscribe button, hit that bell notification so that every time I release a video like this, you will be the first one to know. I'll talk to you guys soon. Ciao, ciao.